Ever since Giannis won his first championship and Finals MVP, has logically been the biggest talking point around the NBA over the past few weeks. Part of this conversation has been whether or not Giannis is the best player in the NBA and where Giannis now ranks all time. Now, as for that first thing, I'll be answering that question in another video, but in this video, I want to talk about that second one, where Giannis ranks all time, because of course, adding a championship and Finals MVP to your resume, on top of him doing it in the manner of averaging 35 points per game over a final series. I forgot to get rid of this cup, and it has liquid in it, so I can't throw it for the bit like I usually do. As I was saying, his legacy has definitely taken a huge leap forward, and because of that, it's time to talk about where he actually ranks all time. Let's do it. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then please subscribe. I'm trying to hit 200K on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. Also, drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Also, real quick, you probably have, but if you haven't seen my newest deep dive on Greg Popovich yet, please be sure to go watch that. That will be linked in the card above, I'm sure. Now, first things first, the reason why I wanted to do this video is that I have seen some annoying extremes. Some people who are just really unwilling to budge with Giannis in terms of putting him into conversations all-time ranking-wise that he is very clearly deserving of being, like barely moving him even into the top 50 where some people didn't have him to begin with, and others that are pushing it way too far and putting him in like a top 15 category, like B-Souls question whether or not Giannis was higher all-time than Kevin Durant, which... sorry, dude, no. So I wanted to talk about this in a more level-headed way. Of course, I am a Giannis fan. Giannis is my third favorite player in the league, give or take. So I have a bias towards him, but at the same time, I feel like where I actually end up putting him is fairly reasonable. Another thing I have to mention is what actual all-time rankings like means to me and what like the combination of factors ends up resulting in where a player ranks. For me, it is a combination of talent, resume, and longevity. You can be a top 50 talent of all time, like let's say Tracy McGrady, but then you're not a top 50 player of all time because you didn't really have the accolades or the longevity, just like you could potentially have a lot of accolades like Robert Horry, but not be a top 50 player of all time because Robert Horry is not even a top probably 200 basketball talent of all time. If two players have a similar resume, but of those two players, one of them is a superior talent, then I'm going to view that superior talent quite a bit higher in all-time rankings, even if on paper they are relatively similar. But at the same time, a great resume can propel a lesser talent over a better one if the better talent didn't necessarily have the best accolades. As for the longevity thing, I do value that less than I think most people do, but I do still have it as a factor. There's some people who would outright not have longevity as a factor at all, which I think is unfair. Basically, I would say if you have 15 years of being really good in the NBA, but there's another player that has 3 great ones, I think I'll take 15 really good over 3 great, even if those 3 great is like a really high. So in that regard, Giannis does have a little bit of room to go just because he is simply 26 and he's only had 3 MVP level seasons, one before it that was pretty good but just not enough winning, and then wasn't really a superstar caliber player other than the last 4 years. Also, in terms of where I'm ranking Giannis, this is like the last thing that I have to make note of, and really this entire video is just me making notes so I can clarify the thought process and where I'm going to end up putting him. Really, you could just skip to the last second of this video where I say where he is, but I want you to know what led me to this conclusion. But I'm using my top 50 of all time list as a frame of reference. I made this list over like a year and a half ago I don't agree with a lot of this list now. There's a lot of things I'd change, both because things have changed with current players, but also my perspective on a lot of these players has changed over the last year. That's just kind of what happens. I have only been watching basketball for around a decade at this point, so my opinion is still subject to change quite frequently. So don't pay much mind to where the individual players are ranked necessarily. I'm just using this as more of a gauge because I think the overall list is like a rough gauge of where players do rank all time and to see what category, what tier, I guess, Giannis kind of fits into. One of the things about that list that I would definitely change is that Giannis is just barely in the top 50. I believe I have him at 46 if I'm not mistaken. Since I have made that list, he has won a MVP, a Defensive Player of the Year, a championship, and a Finals MVP, as well as made more All-NBA and All-Defensive teams. So, of course, he's added quite a bit to his resume in the last year and a half because the season was delayed. He didn't get his MVP and Defensive Player of the Year until September, so that's why that has happened in the last year and a half. But the point remains, Giannis's resume has drastically improved since I made this list. Just to be clear on that resume, here is what Giannis's resume looks like. He's got 2 regular season MVPs, a Defensive Player of the Year in the same year as one of those MVPs, a championship, a Finals MVP, a Most Improved Player award, 5 All-NBA teams, 3 of which are first team selections, and 4 All-Defensive teams, 3 of which are all first team selections. And he had one of the greatest finals performances the league has ever seen, averaging like 35 and 12 on 60% shooting in the finals, while being a masterful defensive player and having 2 iconic plays in that series. So having an all-time moment and an all-time series on top of that resume is definitely a pretty good place to start, especially if you're just 26 years old like Giannis is. However, at the same time, because he is just 26, and as I mentioned earlier, he only really has like a 4-year period of being a superstar caliber guy, that means that his longevity really is not there yet. Now, he's going to rank higher all time as time goes on because he's going to be playing basketball at this level for probably at least another decade, barring some drastic injury, which I pray doesn't happen. But longevity as of now is something that is going to hold Giannis back a bit, but as I mentioned earlier, I don't value it as much as other people would, so like I'll put him over like, I don't know, Clyde Drexler or Dominique Wilkins, even though they played for a long time. Something like that. Now, in terms of pure talent, is Giannis a top 50 talent of all time? Absolutely. Is he top 40 of all time? Yeah. Is he top 30? I feel like if I actually listed out, I could arrive to around 30 names that I think were just a little bit better of a basketball talent at their absolute peak. At least they had the longevity long term that made me more confident in that. But I'd probably say he's still top 30. I just don't think he's cracking quite into a top 20 talent of all time. So that's where he lies in that regard. So with all that said, the resume into place, him being like a top 30-ish talent, but like barely cracking that threshold. It's worth mentioning that I haven't really thought that out. That's really just like a rough, like I'm sure he's roughly in that area. And then the fact that he doesn't have the most longevity in the world, I'm not comfortable putting Giannis in the top 20 yet, because if you look at my list, I have names like Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki, Dwayne Wade, Oscar Robertson, Kawhi, who I would rank lower now, but still, Moses Malone. I don't think he's past those guys yet. I think there's a very real possibility that he does, but he hasn't yet. After this championship, I have seen talks of Giannis being the second best power forward of all time, but as of right now, I'm not going to put him over the likes of Dirk or Kevin Garnett, and then obviously Tim Duncan. But after that, I think you could probably talk me into him being ranked over guys like, I don't know, Charles Barkley and David Robinson. I don't think I would quite put him over them yet, but you could talk me into that. Like, I don't think that's like a ridiculous place to go. That being said, like, I wouldn't give him that, but I can see your point if you'd say he's definitely in that tier as a talent, but is he all-time higher than them, being that they played for as long as they did and achieved what they did in that time? I don't know about that. I also don't think I'd quite put him over guys like Chris Paul, James Harden, or Elgin Baylor, especially just the all-time numbers that all three of those guys are going to have, even if like only James Harden has an MVP among them. Actually, did Elgin Baylor win an MVP? I don't think he did. He was definitely that caliber player, but I don't think he did. Yeah. Did he? Fuck. I don't know. Anyways, I don't think I would quite put him at that level either, but I do think I'd put him over like Clyde Drexler, Elvin Hayes, and Steve Nash. So I guess to me, Giannis is like ranked around 28-ish all time, basically in the high 20s, that rough ballpark. So that's where I have Giannis all time after looking through the list and considering what he has right now. It's worth mentioning that Giannis is going to retire as a top 20 player of all time, more than likely, unless he really just doesn't do shit for the rest of his career besides for just accumulate more numbers. But he's probably going to be in that tier by the time he's done. And he has an incredible start to his resume, being that, again, he is 26 years old and he already has all that he has. Like, he's a Hall of Famer easily already, and he has another decade of basketball to play. But being that he's ranked around 28, and I previously had him at 46, it means that he has leaped 18 spots, nearly 20 spots, and doing that over the course of a year and a half is pretty damn remarkable. Giannis is going to retire as a top 20 player the game has ever seen. Top 20 talent, top 20 all-time resume, all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't be entirely shocked if the cards were played right for him to even crack into the top 10 by the time his career is all said and done. But for that, we're just going to have to wait and see. That is the end of this video. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but that is the end of this video. Wait, I already said it twice. No, wait, what? Why do I keep fucking up the outro in these? But shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this. And cue the outro music. There, I did it.